The South Carolina Hall of Fame was founded in Myrtle Beach in 1973 to recognize and honor contemporary and past citizens who have made outstanding contributions to South Carolina's heritage, history, and progress.
Francis Salvador was one of the great American patriots from South Carolina. Unfortunately, his name has been somewhat overlooked by history. He's somewhat the forgotten patriot.
Francis Salvador was born in 1747 to a wealthy aristocratic family in London. The Salvadors were descendants of Sephardic Jews, and they wanted to help other Jewish people who were fleeing persecution in Europe.
They purchased land in South Carolina with the intent to obtain a king's grant, which would allow for these refugees to be able to start a new life in the American colonies.
It was going to be set up as a place that Jewish families could come and establish themselves under the assurance that South Carolina was a place that would extend religious toleration to Jews, which was not true in all of the initial English colonies.
Members of the Salvador family were heavily invested in the East India Tea Company, which was drastically affected by a sudden, catastrophic event.
The Lisbon earthquake in the 1750s significantly impacted the Salvador's wealth, and I believe one of the chief reasons for Salvador leaving his family and coming to the colonies was in an effort to rebuild the family fortunes.
The land in America was basically all that was left.
He's going to South Carolina to manage these properties to try to turn a profit on them because the family has lost so much money.
Salvador sailed to the colonies in 1773, and along with new opportunities, he found new friends.
Francis was very well educated and by all accounts very well spoken. When he arrived in Charleston, he became known to the leaders of the Charleston area.
He very quickly became part of the radical revolutionary planter elite. The folks that would sign the Declaration of Independence, the folks that would go on to sign the Constitution.
The following year, Salvador moved to the upcountry to start an indigo plantation. His neighbors in the 96th district took an immediate liking to him, and he was elected to the new provincial Congress.
The number of literate people on the American frontier was not terribly high. Francis Salvador was very literate, and everybody who reflected on him following his death mentioned what an educated person he was. So in an era where so much of politics is conducted by correspondence, having a man who's literate is a really key value and a kind of a limited resource.
The people of that time, the people of 96th District, the common folks that were his neighbors and farmers around him, they rallied behind him and they wanted him to be their representative.
He was a tireless advocate in the provincial Congress for the upcountry. And what the body was doing was an attempt at creating a representative legislature.
On July 1st, 1776, 3 days before the signing of the Declaration of Independence, a group of Loyalists and their Cherokee allies attacked the 96 community. Francis Salvador mounted his horse and galloped 28 miles to warn his friends and neighbors of the coming onslaught. In August, Salvador was accompanying Major Andrew Williamson and the South Carolina militia on an expedition to protect the upcountry settlers.
As they approached Seneca, a shot rang out from the first house on the edge of Seneca town, which was a shot to alert the Indians that were laying in wait, and they sprang to action, attacking the advanced group. Salvador received 3 wounds, 3 musket balls.
The story of his death, the best source we have for it, is from Major Williamson's after-action report.
Salvador asked him if he had beat the enemy, and Williamson responded, yes. Salvador's response was, I am glad of it. And then Williamson reported that Salvador raised his hand and shook his hand and bade him farewell.
Francis Salvador is really fun for historians because he's a bit of a mirror. What people see in Salvador is a little bit of what they want to see in him. And I think that that's one of the most fascinating aspects of his legacy, is it doesn't just help us see who he was, but it also helps us understand who we hope to see ourselves become.
Born an aristocrat, he became a Democrat. An Englishman, he cast his lot with America. True to his ancient faith, he gave his life for new hopes of human liberty and understanding.